All right, welcome to the Good Rookies podcast. My name's Faheem.
And my name is Nelly J, y'all, and we are Good Rookies.
That's
What's
right.
going on, everybody? We're recording on a historic day today. Big up Kamala Harris. But y'all, right now it is episode 23.
That's right.
Jumpman,
23.
Jumpman, Jumpman. Oh, Faheem, Jumpman, you know what I'm talking
Jump.
about. So, first of all, y'all, I'm so excited for this guest. Like, legit, he is already the legend in the basketball world in Canada. So, Faheem, please introduce our audacious guest today.
That's right. So we have content producer, we have host, and we have deputy commissioner of the NBL Canada Basketball League.
Woo!
Let's welcome Audley Stephenson to the podcast today.
Audley.
Audley.
You guys are far too gracious. Thank you. It's a pleasure being here. Love the work that you guys do, and it's an honor to sit here and chop it up with you guys. So thank you for making the time and having a little old me on your podcast.
Little
old you. Oh, you're so humble. You're so humble. So Audley, like I'm actually really curious to know because I won't lie, I Googled you. I did. And one thing I did not see was, where did your love of basketball start? Like, did it start in school? Did it start on the playground? Did you play ball? I looked it up, but I couldn't find it where. So let us know where or how or who was the reason why you kind of loved the game of basketball.
Yeah, so I grew up in downtown Toronto, in the west end of the city, in a part of the city. I was actually sort of, if you're familiar with sort of West End, sort of Dufferin and Bloor, Lansdowne and Bloor, sort of that little European. So I grew up with the Portuguese and the Italian kids and the Greek. It was that little melting pot. And my basketball career was legendary in those playground parks there. That was as far as it went after that. Again, I was beating guys that were soccer players, right? So I had the leg up on them. And so that was the extent of my basketball career. I always, growing up, loved the sport like everyone else. I had an older brother that got me hooked on to the whole Showtime Lakers train, if you will. And, you're watching Magic with these flashy passes and behind the back and getting all excited. And that's where it kind of started for me. And I was always gravitated to the game. And then as time went on, I became a Knicks guy. I was a New York Knicks guy, Patrick Ewing. Jamaican roots. So I connected with, Patrick right away. And all that he did with Mason and Oak and the whole squad. So, yeah, that was basketball. And then from then, basketball has always been a part of the humble beginnings, if you will.
Awesome. No, I think it's amazing that, that kind of humble beginning is now there's only been one other commissioner that was Black in North America, and you're now the second one that, that we can say, big up to you, breaking barriers for Black people everywhere, because, most Black men in the sport aren't, there's Messiahs up there now, but still just having someone like that, having your journey from the humble grounds of Lansdowne to where you are today is really inspirational. So we're just really happy to have you on the podcast. So yeah, let's get rocking and rolling, Faheem.
Yeah, so we have, the NBL League, NBL Canada, it's in its 10th season. So first of all, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we just concluded, or COVID concluded, our 9th season for us. So we're looking forward to our 10th one when we get started again.
So that's something that you should at least, we got to celebrate that, because 10 years of basketball professional league in Canada, that's something that we have to really celebrate. What I do want to do is this. I want to make sure that, what we may have here is the league itself is kind of in a situation where the NBA is the big league, and you have the Canadian League, which kind of seems as maybe like a feeder league, much like the NFL is the big league and the CFL seems like, the feeder league, like the younger league, where the talent maybe is on the same level, right? The reason why I'm saying this is I want to highlight the teams in the league first of all, because there's a lot of people out there who follow the NBA, but don't really follow the Canadian League as they should and possibly will be going forward in the future. So we have the Island Storm, Halifax Hurricanes, Moncton Magic, St. John's Edge, Kitchener Titans, London Lightning, Windsor Express, and the Sudbury Five. Okay, so those are the teams that I think we should highlight.
I will say that, I appreciate that. No, I'll make clear, it's the Kitchener Waterloo Titans, and I say that specifically because
KW, yeah.
When KW Titans came into existence, they're kind of in that they're sort of in that area where they could have been claimed by a couple cities, and
right.
So the Kitchener Waterloo area kind of came together and claimed that team as their own. So it's very important that we bear in mind that the KW Titans, the Kitchener Waterloo region, is very much a part of that team because they wouldn't be where they are today without them. So but you're right. You know what? I'm gonna give you a gold star because they got all the teams, absolutely all 8 teams in our league. I appreciate that, man. Thank you. Thank you.
So in the 10th league, in the 10th year now, I just want to ask a question in regards to the road coming up to where we are in being the 10th year. COVID is obviously affecting it, right? So I just wanted to ask, since you didn't have the 9th year and you're in the 10th year now, where are we at right now in regards to how COVID has maybe set you back and going forward, what you have for COVID?
Well, let me go back just a little bit and give a little bit of history of this league. As you said,
Right.
We started it was actually the lockout year of the NBA. So that was in 2011, when year one of NBL Canada. And at the time, there was no pro basketball prior to that. There had been, different leagues that sort of sprouted out, but didn't really have much longevity. And so the founders at that time really wanted to have something special for Canada by way of having Canada have its own pro domestic league. That was also recognized not just within Canada, but outside of Canada. And hence the beginning of NBL Canada. Of the teams that you've named, and and then throughout the years, our league, as you would imagine a young league would, goes through changes, and some teams either relocate, some teams change altogether. We lose teams, we add teams. Of the remaining 8 teams, two of them were part of the original group. The London Lightning, that play fantastic ball at Budweiser Gardens, and the Island Storm. And initially they were actually the Summerside Storm, which is a smaller community in PEI, but they moved over to Charlottetown just for more opportunities and exposure for the club. The Windsor Express followed in year number 2. They came on board year number 2, and the Moncton Magic team actually formerly, we had a team in Moncton, but they initially were the Miracles, and then as things go, they changed over to the Magic. So we've certainly had some facelifts, and we've certainly gone through different transitions. Our league certainly has had its fair shares of ups and downs. I would wish, and I'd love to be able to say it's been a smooth 9 years, and we were issue and problem free, and everything worked exactly the way that we wanted to. That's not the case, and that's not even realistic for any new venture. You're going to have something. And so I think for us, the strength and certainly the pride that comes from my perspective is the fact that we've weathered the storms. And the fact that we're still here talking about the fact that you can be able to ask me, well, what does next year look like? I think that's a testament to just the hard work, the dedication. I give a lot of credit to the board of directors. They're committed, they're dedicated. I think the strength of one of the things we're really proud of is the work that the teams do in the individual communities. So we're not just there to play basketball. We're part of the communities in which we play in. And that's something that we hang our hats on and have always been proud of. Fast forward now to sort of where we are now. Absolutely, COVID certainly put a damper on what we were doing. We were probably about 2 or 3 weeks away from concluding our regular season and moving into playoffs. So, the style of play was really picking up, right? Because teams were jockeying, trying to, play off positioning on the seedings and things of that nature. So we're really seeing it from an entertainment value. We're really seeing the game pick up. So it was mightily disappointing to not be able to conclude the season. But obviously there's some things that are bigger than basketball from a health and safety standpoint for that of our fans and our players. So we had to stop, and our focus became on making sure that everyone was safe. And so as far as next year goes, in this coming season, we're ready to go. In terms of sort of the impact it had on us, we just weren't able to play. But I mean, if COVID stopped tomorrow, we'd be playing the day after. Like, we are absolutely ready to go. We want to go. It's just a matter of sort of weathering out the storm. And as far as what next year looks like, we want to celebrate. We want to celebrate 10 years. We have the distinction of being Canada's longest-standing professional basketball league at 10 years. It's not really a long time. 10 years isn't a long time. You've got pro leagues overseas that have been happening decades and decades, right? So there's a lot of work for us to do still that we recognize, and we spend a lot of time sort of talking about what we want to do to strengthen our base and still continue to be about the business of basketball. We're far from perfect, but we certainly recognize the opportunity we have in front of us to continue to grow and get better.
So you made a good point in regards to how you are positioned in regards to teams overseas who have been around and have a long foothold in the game for a long time. You being a new team, because so I was doing a little bit of research on this, and there was an article on ABC News, because I want to see what's the top 10 leagues globally. And I'll go through them very quickly, what they listed. This is as of 2017. So it's, maybe 4 or 5 years away, past. But it goes like this. Number 1 is the Euro League. Number 2 is the Spanish League. Number 3 is the Turkish League. Number 4 is the Russian League. 5 German. 6 Italian. 7 French. 8th Adriatic, which is Bosnia, Serbian, etc. 9th Greek. And then 10th Australian, right? So I guess my question is, being a new league.
And if I can start, if I want to interject there, I want to interject there. Sure. I think in all those countries those leagues that you named, basketball is deeply embedded in the cultures of those countries.
Of
course.
Basketball is, if not the number 1 sport, close to the top.
Right.
That's not the case in Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
As much as us want to claim that, we're still a hockey-first country. I sort of talked about earlier, growing up watching basketball, loving basketball as a kid. It's tough to find content. It's tough to find an update on the score. A major event happens in the world of basketball. Turn it on TSN, it's low on the bar. You're not going to get top of the news feed, right?
Right.
That's just the reality. That's what I grew up watching and seeing and knowing. So I think it's a really important, and I'm glad that you went through that list. But it's also important to understand where basketball ranks in those countries versus where we are here in Canada.
It's so funny you mentioned that, because I remember before we got the Raptors team, even with the Raptors here, you really saw Raptor highlights. Like, you would see like NHL highlights before Raptor highlights. I think only when Vince Carter came, we got more like play. But even Vince Carter, it was a fight up thing to see basketball on Canadian television. The Score, remember the Score channel that we had, and like it just really truly that channel showed more highlights than the actual TSN and Sportsnet and those places. So it is a fight up, but like I really think that the NBL, I think the number 1 challenge you guys have been facing is just building your brand in Ontario is hard because Toronto, the G League is here, right? So I think, going to like Sudbury, right? What are you doing in Sudbury, right? Going to other places like that in Canada, PEI and in Nova Scotia, I think it's important because those markets don't have a CFL team and, they needed some type of sporting event. So I think the markets you've chosen with this league is very strategic, and I think it's the best path for the league moving forward.
I will tell you that on a Saturday night in Charlottetown or a Saturday night in St. John's, Newfoundland, I can tell you where the best place to be.
Of course, of course.
And I've been there on those nights, and I've seen the excitement. I remember year one of the St. John's Edge in Newfoundland, opening night. Obviously, lots of excitement. and you know, and fans were coming to me and saying, "Thank you for coming here. Thank you for being here.
Of
Oh my
course.
goodness, we love this." So thanks, Nelly, for your comments. It is strategic. That's always been key. You know, we had the closest to the GTA is we had teams in Brampton A's a few years ago, as
I
well
went to
as
games before, a couple games I went.
Saw the Power, yeah.
Yeah.
And those are the teams closest to the GTA, and you know they struggle a little bit. And you think of all the entertainment options that are available for you people. Like, you know, you're not just fighting the Raptors. You're fighting
TFC, Maple Leafs,
TFC, a movie night, a festival. You know, walk in the park. Like there's all sorts of things that you're fighting that make it more challenging and difficult. So. I think where we're at, we're happy with where we're at, and there's still lots of other opportunities, and we recognize that, and you know, we'll continue to grow that way.
Another thing I can mention also is being in the markets you're in, you're not quite dealing with the same basketball snobbery. And what I mean by that is, I know in Ontario right now, like knowing that there's NBA players and the players that play in the league aren't NBA caliber, right? I think in certain markets, people look on that and kind of frown on it. The way people look at the NFL and frown on the CFL, right? Or maybe even the MLS and, you know, opposed to Europe, like, you know, like, but I think in the markets you're in, such as Sudbury and like you mentioned, Charlottetown out east, you're not quite dealing with that same bias toward it. Like they know that having maybe, professional basketball that's not at the same level as the NBA, they see it, they could still see the entertainment value because, like you mentioned, they don't have those type of options. So I think, you know, kudos to the league for being in those places. But I do want to actually add something, a question. You have the CEBL, the Canadian Elite Basketball League. So your league runs on the basketball calendar. So we'll say with the NBA, right? That other league is not on the basketball calendar. It's more like a professional summer league because it runs on during the summer league, right? But in regards to your league is situated from Ontario going east, but going west of Canada, like, you know, to Saskatchewan, like BC,
Saskatchewan, Alberta,
yeah,
Manitoba.
to the west, there's no presence there. And the one that has the presence is a summer league. So, you know, is there, if not maybe a way to join the leagues, is there a way that you might be looking to maybe expand going west, or are you just happy with having Ontario going east?
Western expansion is always something that's been an interest to our league, and there have been a couple instances sort of in our history where attempts have been made, and so I wouldn't say that door is closed. It certainly is a desire for sure. Ultimately, at the end of the day, if we truly and legitimately want to be a national league, then we need to be national. So that's totally recognized. That's totally desire, and for sure that's on the calendar. I think the challenge with CEBL. You know, their owner, the league owner there, I know him quite well. He used to be a part of our league.
Yes, he was.
You know, he very much loves the game of basketball. I like him a lot. He's a great guy. I mean, there's not like an animosity thing or anything like that.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you're talking about two leagues that operate very differently. Their structures are very differently. You've got one owner for one league, and you've got 8 in another. So that on itself creates you know, not the best dynamics in terms of synergies. And then of course you've got, you know, the timing of play. From what I understand, you know, CEBL selected summer because they felt that was the best time for their league and opportunities and things of that nature. So and for us, you know, we've been doing this for 9 years and having fun and having a blast doing it. And there hasn't been a design change. And in fact, I know in some of our markets, and it's not that we haven't talked about doing a summer shift in the past, because that has come in an earlier part of our existence. The talk of summer play has come up. And I actually remember we had a team in Moncton. Now, they don't play there anymore, but they used to play in the Moncton Coliseum. And they've since moved. They have a brand new building, the Avenir Center, right in downtown Moncton. State-of-the-art building, brand new, fantastic. But at the time that the conversation about summer play in the summertime had come up, I remember the ownership group Moncton was like, look, we're in a building that doesn't have air conditioning in summertime, and so it doesn't make sense for us to be there, right? So there's a lot of little things that I said, well, this isn't for us right now, and
Right.
Again, it's come up a few times, but there really hasn't been a serious consideration for our league to make that drastic of a switch or change.
Right. So you see, for instance, I would think that the league is positioned perfectly, just being North United States, because of the fact that, for instance, LaMelo Ball and RJ Hampton. So as we know, with high school players now, the route to go to the NBA used to be to go to NCAA there.
Mhm.
Now, in today's climate, now kids aren't really thinking, I need to go to the NCAA. They're actually thinking, maybe I can just go to the G League, or I can just go play overseas professionally for a
paid.
year and get paid and then come back to the league, right?
That's right.
So NBL being north of the border, so close, I'm just wondering if the league has these kids that maybe are thinking of being a professional player, instead of going overseas, like for instance, LaMelo Ball and RJ went over to the other side of the world in Australia. I'm just wondering, wouldn't it make a better option for them to stay close to home? Just come north of the border, and even for scouting, like it just seems like if the league is going to have talent that's not NBA caliber, it's a perfect it'd be a perfect synergy, I think, to say, hey, you know what? Instead of having these kids leave, why not keep them on at least on the continent and within? Do you get that train of thought, or what do you have to say to that?
Yeah, it totally makes sense, and I think a lot of that has to do with the league's presence being known, right?
Mhm.
I think we've done a good job in the agent community, right? So we have lots of agents that are in contact with our league or our teams or players, or even myself. I'll hear from agents. So I think that's a good route and avenue to go down. I will say that we actually did have a player last season who was a high school talent that played in our league. Unfortunately, he was tragically killed not too long ago,
Yeah,
which was sad to see. That it was terrible.
terrible. Yeah, I read about that.
We're talking about a young talented kid out of California, and he was, he was sort of touted to be, let's see what kind of talent he has, and so I think that those opportunities like that do exist. And unfortunately, in the case of Carl Lewis, who's no longer with us, he was the first player to do exactly what you had referenced, and I think it makes sense. We're talking about taking a young high school kid, sending him overseas somewhere where now he's got to deal with language, food. Who knows if a cell phone works over there? I mean, there's all sorts of logistical things that now have to come into play, whereby you can cross the border whenever the borders open back up, but we can cross the borders and be close to home.
Right.
The being close to home and crossing the borders, that's appealing for players who aren't high school kids, who are pro players that see the action of playing in Canada. So what you said makes perfectly good sense, bang on, and it totally has been recognized.
That's awesome. And just to kind of give the NBL a shout out, because I don't think people are even aware, but you did have a player in the NBL that signed in the NBA, right? Omari Johnson, a forward. He played in the NBL for 2 years, played overseas in the Spaniard League, came back and was drafted from Memphis. So it just shows that, the NBL can harvest that talent. And even though it didn't make it on Sports Center or Sportsnet, anything like that, I think that's a huge accomplishment for the league. And I hope you guys are able to really capitalize on the changes and be able to get more high school players to come and harness their talent, right? There's so many great basketball camps in Toronto now, a lot of great coaches out here now too. So I think, the NBL is positioned, especially now the Raptors won, you're positioned definitely to get more of those high school stars. So
I want to give a shout. Thank you for mentioning Omari Johnson. I just love his story. He played in our inaugural year, first 2 years of the league. Great guy, super proud of him. He spent a lot of years in the G League and just really applying his trade and sticking to it. So You know, when the Trailblazers offered him a contract, I reached out to him and I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy for you, Amari." And it had nothing to do with, hey, he was an NBL guy. And the thing with us is, no matter where you go, you're always an NBL guy, right? So it had nothing to do with the fact that he was an NBL guy and he's now in the NBA. I was legitimately happy and proud for him and his family, is that you see a lifelong dream finally come to fruition, and that was awesome. So shout out to Amari Thompson.
Awesome.
Nice. All right, so well, you know what? Well, first of all, I think we should make sure that we do highlight that the NBL. Actually, I do have one more question before we segue.
Sure.
One more question.
You're on a roll, man. Let's go.
So, in regards to viewership, right? With the league, television, that's key, especially now. But I'm just wondering, with the internet, being a viable option now, what's the league doing now to make sure that casual people who maybe know of the league but don't know any of the teams, the names, what is happening through social or just on the internet that we could say, in regards to broadcasting games? Is there anything innovative that the league's doing to reach people online?
Yeah, so last year, the first couple of years of the league operated and streamed. Also, all games are streamed online first and foremost. So,
yeah, they're all streamed online. It's like Faheem. Yeah, I'm like, they're all online anyway.
Okay.
Because you can connect social directly, right?
People need to know that.
Right. Mm-hmm. So that's first and foremost. Yeah, that's first and foremost. So, and when we experimented a few things. First couple of years, we tried different sort of platforms to stream content. And then we eventually went over to YouTube, and we streamed all our games on YouTube. And again, the interfaces with social just make it really easy. And so and we did that. I want to say last season, or probably the season before, the league launched its own pay-per-view platform. So it was called NBLC Live, where it housed all the games. And again, what that did is gave the league a bit more creative control. It also allowed us to have some flexibility. One of the things that we used to happen on YouTube, and it's funny to you can laugh at it now, but if we were in if there was live music being played in the arena, then YouTube would say, "Hey, you don't have the rights to that music," and they shut the game down, right? Like it was just crazy.
I'm dead.
Everyone's got to get their chips, right? So like, no, you can't play Drake without us getting something, right? That's what it was. So it's funny to look at now, and so. So the whole idea of having its own platform, that was really, really important for us. We launched that, worked through Kingston Bucks, had a year number one. By the time we got to year two, which was last season, we really felt good about the product and the platform and the overall look and feel. And so we'll continue to promote that. We were offering, again, it's a pay-per-view platform, but we were offering like free Saturday night games or free Friday night games. We called it Friday Night Hoops, and really promote that as an opportunity. And we'd highlight sort of marquee games and key matchups and things of that nature. So, the strategy will continue to revolve around our new platform. We invested a lot into that to bring it to where it is. And quite frankly, we're really, really proud of it. So that's going to be the key, and that's moving forward for certain, in the absence of, being on traditional television.
Nice. All right, so let's do this. Nelly J, let's go to For the Culture.
For the culture. So we'd like to highlight individuals, organizations.
This is my favorite part, man. This is my favorite part.
And our For the Culture topic is Audley Stephenson. That's it.
Right. That's it.
So Audley, man, you've been for the culture way before people even knew what the For the Culture was about. And, I love your podcast, the Audacious Living podcast. I actually played a few of them. The last one I listened to was you had Terry on there, Kinkin' Your Hair. And I thought she shared a really good story about what she's been through and, how. So first of all, I want you to talk to the viewers about the idea of being audacious, right? And why you think that messaging is so important in regards to, especially after 2020, why do you think being audacious is so important, in life nowadays?
I'm gonna go back just a little bit, right, and I'll eventually we'll get to the answer to your question.
No problem, man.
I absolutely love podcasting. I've been podcasting. I started my first podcast in like 2007, 2008, in and around there. Me and a buddy of mine, Dave Mendonca. Ironically enough, Dave Mendonca and I met at the Score, where I was an intern once upon a time, and he was an on-air reporter. And we initially made that connection. We decided, again, we were actually he was a Knicks fan as well. So two Knicks fans got together and said, hey, you know, because he had the same frustrations that I did, that there is no basketball and, you know, there's no coverage of basketball. And how do we do that? And we decided, hey, let's launch our podcast. And, you know, that was a time where there was a small handful of basketball heads out there. I know you had my buddy Dwayne Watson a few weeks back, and you know, he was one of the few guys that, you know, we were like, yo, where's our basketball? We need our fix. We need our fix. And so we just decided we'll create our own platform. And again, this is before the Raptors were champions for sure. And we just decided to go with it. We had a lot of traction, had a lot of NBA players come through. You know, we really grew our platform. We were credentialed by the Raptors. We used to go down to locker rooms and interview players and all that good stuff and really promote the game and highlight the game. I tell you that story because, and it directly links into your question in terms of audaciousness, because I think that bold, to me, audacious is taking bold steps to take risks, to take chances. And I don't think there's anything bigger than taking a chance of starting a basketball podcast in a hockey country. And that's exactly what we said this needs to be done. Fast forward, and throughout the years I've done, I think this is my 6th podcast, to be honest with you. And I've done in different instances, I've in the moment where I thought, hey, I want to talk about this or I want to talk about that. I used to be a professional speaker. I was a motivational speaker, and I dedicated my to leadership development. So I used to go to schools and talk about kids about how to be a leader within yourself, and you know, you don't need to have a title to be a leader. And I used to bring in sort of, you know, all sorts of like basketball reference. I used to say that you don't need to be a point guard to be a leader, right? As an example. So basketball is always interwoven into everything I had done, but this motivational, inspirational piece it truly is a fiber of who I am, authentically and real. That's what you see, and anything that you see me put out in terms of motivational or inspiration, that truly is coming from my heart, as well as my love and dedication to my family. So when we get to now the Audacious Living podcast, I truly think it's been an extension of who I am and who I live my life. And when we talk about the importance of it, I think it's important. When we talk about the importance and why it's important, it really comes down to the fact that by me living my life, my bold life, taking the risk, living the way I'm supposed to, living my inner greatness, that's inspiring people. That's giving people motivation. That's helping others see, you know, that there is a possibility. I'm sure when you guys got together and said that you wanted to do a podcast, there was lots of, well, I don't know, and how will we do this, and I'm not sure, but you went out and did it anyways. Right. And through your podcast, through the Good Rookies podcast, you know, you've provided joy, you provided inspiration, you've had a good time, you've created a platform. And that's really what we're talking about here. That's really the bottom line to all that we're talking about in terms of launching forward, being that great, because we've all got that sort of greatness that lies within us in terms of who we are and who we're supposed to be and how we're supposed to live our lives. And sure, there's things that happen through other, there are disappointments, past hurts, fears, whatever, that impede that or impact that slow us down. But one thing I always say is that our greatness, the greatness lies on the other side of disappointment. So if you get on the other side of those negative situations or those bad things, that's where the true greatness lies. And so that's just, you know, how I live my life. I've been fortunate. When I was appointed the deputy commissioner of NBL Canada, at that point in time, I quite frankly, had been a volunteer with the league for the first 6 or 7 years. And really, I did that because I believed in what the league was doing. I truly believed, as a lover of hoops and a lover of basketball, I wasn't there for a paycheck. I was out there doing the work, doing as much as I can. So when you saw me and Markham doing media stuff for the league, that was me doing it because I wanted to be there and I wanted to help advance what the league was trying to do. And so when I reflect on my entire life, my career, personal, professionally, I think being audacious and being bold and doing the things that I should be in terms of my inner greatness, that's always existed. So I hope I've answered that,
No, I mean, honestly, like I had questions for you, which you answered in what you just said, but I want to kind of add to what you just said, because I think it's important for the listeners and viewers to hear your example. You volunteered for a long time, and that sacrifice that you took out of your time. Because remember, you got kids, you got family to take care of, but you still took extra time because that was your passion project, right? And look where it brought you now. So I think a lot of times people think, oh, I like that. Okay, you like it, but do the work, right? Your example of, if you do the work and you're passionate about it and your heart's behind it, right, you'll reap those rewards eventually. It might not happen right away, but you worked there for a long time, and the board said, you know what, this guy believes in our brand so much that we want to bring him on board, and now you're running the league. You know what I mean? Which is amazing. So I think you're a living testimony of what For the Culture is, but also for us to understand that, hey, not everything you want will happen right away, but just sacrifice, volunteer, put in that work, right? Put in that time, and that's how you are audacious, is by sacrificing that extra time that you want for your dreams. And I think that's so great how you did live that life. And I'm happy that you're sharing that story, not with not with just like your guests, but with everyone, right? So I think hashtag Be Audacious should be a movement for sure. And I hope all the listeners definitely subscribe to the podcast and follow you. Question about the Raptors. Now, what was that like working there and seeing Vince Carter? Because I think you worked with MLSC as well, right? So
going back to sort of me and being around basketball. So I remember early it was so I want to say I started there in '99. So the season prior, 1998, everyone knew I was just a basketball guy. And anytime someone had tickets, they'd call me up and say, "Here, take them. I don't want them." You can't get tickets. You can't get Raptors tickets given to you now these days. But there was a time where people were just throwing them away. Hey, I don't want these. Take them. So I went. And I remember I probably, out of the 41 home games, I probably went to like 25 games. And they were all just like, here, I don't want him, here, I don't want him. But people just knew. People knew he's a basketball guy, he'll take him. And at the end of that season, I remember saying to myself, there's absolutely no way I can go back to sit and watching basketball on my couch anymore. Like, I got to find a way to be here like all the time.
Right.
And so I applied for a job and I was an usher. So I was an usher for probably maybe 15 years or something like that I was an usher there.
That's so dope.
So the entire Vince Carter era, his rookie season all the way through. But what that also did is really open my eyes to the business side of basketball. So I went there as a fan, but it really opened my eyes up to a whole bunch of other aspects of the game, that the behind the scenes stuff, the things that the little game operation stuff that you never really put any thought to. I met a ton of people. I networked like crazy. Not though I was networking to get anywhere. I was just like, hey, I'm just happy to be here. And so that was so good. Well, it was, and in fact, one of the people, the first person that turned me on and said, hey, there's this thing called the NBL starting. It was someone that I knew that I'd met at MLSC when I was sitting as an usher, helping people find their seats. So,
wow.
So all of that. So, as much as we talk about, volunteering, and I appreciate you acknowledging that, because I go to school sometimes, or I talk to classes, or I'm in sports management classes, and I talk about the fact that, you got to pay your dues. And I'm not saying you got to come and go and I'm going to work for free and you should expect you have to work for free all the time first. I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. But there is an aspect that no job is beneath you, regardless if you're getting paid for it or not. And so for me, helping people find their seats, that was where it started, right? Like before, right. That's where it started for me. And from there, I built and I grew and I developed. And in 2017, when the board of directors came to me and said, we want you to take on this role of being lead commissioner, I was like, wait a second, are you sure about that? And I actually remember it was a Friday, like a Friday afternoon, like 2:00, and the board chair had called me and he said, hey, we're thinking about this. We're thinking about you. What do you think? And I remember pushing back, going, nah, I know what you're talking about. And so then I said to him, I tell you what, it's Friday. Give me the weekend to think about it. I'll call you back Monday morning. And he said, sure, no problem. Take your time. And the moment he hung up the phone, I said, what the hell did I just do? call him back right away. What is wrong with you, man? Take the job, right?
So, you're like, what?
I was, because I wasn't in it for that, right? That's not what I was there for. So the whole idea of doing something and being a part of something that you love because it's passion, it doesn't feel, in some ways you're like, this doesn't feel right because I'm not really working hard. I'm having a lot of fun. Right? Like, I'm enjoying myself. And you're going to pay me to do this? Like, how does that add up and make sense? But I mean, that's kind of, so that was my process. And that's why I initially pushed back, because my reasons and why I was there and why I was doing it
was so
was
genuine.
totally different.
It was so genuine. Like, you have a genuine spirit. And I think they just saw that, you know, you want someone like you to lead, right? Because commissioner's job is to make the ownership, the players believe in the league, right? And because you're already audacious personality, you're already loving the game of basketball and you believe in it, it's like your energy is going to flow down into the success of the league, right? So I think, I mean, hence why you're for the culture, man. Like, real talk. Like, and I think for anyone listening, Audley was an usher, y'all, and now he's a commissioner. Okay, like, girl. First of all, Audley, please write a book. Write a book, please. Okay. Homework for you, Audley.
I've actually written 2 books, to be honest with you.
Oh, you have?
Yeah. So
plug it in.
When I did my basketball podcast with my buddy Dave Mendonca, we wrote a book called here it is, Basketball Talk the Way It Should Be. And it was a quote book. I just happened to have it. Look at product placement. Right? I just happened to have it, and it was more just about we took all the quotes from all the guests that we've had, and we just mashed them together into one and sort of put them out there. And that was we sort of co-authored that. A few years later, I sort of got, and as I said before, I do motivational speaking, and so I actually decided to write another cool book of just a book of quotes. And that's why when if you happen to be on my feed, I'm always putting out quotes, because there's quotes I've either written. I love quotes, I truly do. And so I wrote a book called Gifts from Others. And the premise behind that is that our words are gifts, right? So I'm giving you a gift of, hey, you guys do an amazing podcast. I love the Good Rookies podcast. It's awesome. I really appreciate the time. I love Jomo behind the scenes making things work. Like, those are all gifts, right? And so that was really the premise of the book. So yeah, so thank you. I'm probably gonna have to write.
Yeah, you don't need to, Audley.
Yeah,
you will need to, because
I've got a collection of some more experience I need to capture.
No, you need to, because the Audley experience and what you've gone through, I think a lot of young kids that are pursuing basketball, and the ones that love basketball but don't know how to get in, maybe they couldn't afford to go to Harvard or a business school, you know what I mean? And they're like, how do I get there? It's like, you're gonna provide inspiration for people that don't even know that they can make it. So I think your story, listen, I think everyone's story is motivational. I believe everyone's story can impact someone else. So we're just so happy that you can share your story on the podcast today. And that's why you're for the culture, man. So thanks again for sharing that insight. And guys, be audacious.
That's right.
And being audacious doesn't mean that you're jumping off cliffs, or you're hang gliding, or you're jumping out of planes or anything like that. It's just being bold and being you. And so it's not about taking risks and putting your life in jeopardy. It's being you, being the best that you possibly can.
That's so dope. Faheem?
And it's funny because I came across in South America, there was a man sitting in an empty stadium, and the caption under it said he went from being a fan, like an ultra in soccer, to being the president of this soccer team, right? I don't know if you guys heard about this, but I found that inspirational to see that. I was like, wow, how does somebody go from, like, literally, let's say, start from the bottom and getting to the top, right? I do think that, Audley, your story, people need to know about this. Like, you went from being an usher to the commissioner of a Canadian basketball league. So, like, I had no idea about this. Now knowing this, I think, like you mentioned about gifts, we have our listeners know about this, but what Nelly J was saying about writing a book, if not a book, I definitely think there has to be a feature. There has to be something outlining what you've done, where you've been, and where you're going. So we'll have to definitely keep up with this, with your story, because honestly, it's very inspirational. Very inspirational.
It is. It is,
Well,
man.
Thank you. I like to think. Thank you. I like to think that my story isn't done yet. I've got lots to do, lots to accomplish. And again, doing the Audacious Living podcast. It was very much a burning desire. It was like, I need to do this. I need to do this. I have to do this. And so I'm fulfilling my own destiny. But yeah, I appreciate that. Believe me, I do it all for the right reasons. It's not self-serving at all. I'm just happy to share. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, guys, that's for the culture. And please
Nice.
subscribe to Audley's podcast. Follow him on Instagram. He always has the best quotes, especially when I'm a rough day at work with COVID. Like, his page will definitely inspire you and provide, like, you know, like a reminder as to why we're here and what we're doing. So please check him out, Audley Stephenson, and support the NBL. I believe you guys start back March 2021. So hopefully, you know.
Yep. Well, that's a plan. I think COVID's going to dictate things, but that's a plan.
That's the plan. So we'll cross our fingers that happens for y'all.
Nice.
So
One last thing.
Sorry, go ahead, Faheem.
No, I just want to ask one last thing before we transition out. Can you give me your best story? You say you were an usher at the time would have been the ACC, right? Quickly, can I get just your best story of an interaction with a Raptor that you have of being an usher?
Man, best one. You know what? The players were all really cool because they were so much about being a professional player, and I had tremendous respect for that. In terms of just their level of interaction and how they dealt with players. But I do remember, actually, as I'm talking, I do remember a story. Amari Stoudemire, when he was with the Phoenix Suns, there was so it wasn't a Raptor, but it was he was visiting. At the end of the game, I was sort of standing near the court between the seats and the court, and he's taking off his shoe to sign and throw it to the crowd. Well, this one guy, he was a father and he had a young son, and it was his son. He almost jumped over his son to grab. I almost trampled his son to get the shoe, and he jumped up and he was like, "Oh!" But then he tried to use the fact that his son was trampled to get the shoe. So he's like, "Oh, my son was hurt. You got to give me the shoe." And I looked over to Amari and I said, "Just give it to him. Just give it to him." So Amari gives him the shoe, and then afterwards he said to me, "Yeah, that was a good look. That could have got real bad for us. So thanks for doing that, right?" Because it's so funny. It's like, because the father, he was the opportunist, right?
He's like, "Hold up."
He's like, "Okay, Amari's shoe. I don't care what happened to my son, man." So
my son. Hey, boy, are you okay? Are you okay, son? Amari, your shoe. Are you okay?
That's
yeah.
right. That's right.
That's so funny.
Nice.
Anyhow, that was a quick one.
Nice. All right, so let's transition out of this with That's Absurd.
That's absurd, Faheem, bro. What was absurd this week? What was absurd?
Wow. So we have, as we know, James Harden. He got part of a blockbuster trade. Now he's in Brooklyn. On his way out of Houston, we all know it's well documented on how he left not on a good note. He has a restaurant in Houston that's unopened, might I add. That when he left, the fans of Houston, opposed to maybe burning his jerseys as they did with LeBron, decided to give his unopened restaurant a 1-star rating.
On Google.
Absurd.
Wow. Honestly, to me, that's absurd. I'm sorry. How about you, Audley? What's your thoughts on the fans getting back at Harden?
I was like, man, the internet wins again. I mean, that's the first thought that came to my mind is, it was just terrible. And I mean, the star rate, the low star rating is hilarious, but some of the comments about it's not good, but it didn't end well, and the internet's just out of control. But yeah, listen, fans have the right to be fans, I guess, but my goodness, that's crazy. That's crazy. And for him to continue to open a restaurant, knowing that he was possibly going to face backlash, he still maintained, "This is what I'm going to do." I mean,
right,
man. But yeah, that was crazy. That's crazy. The burning toilet too. Like, wow, these guys are burning toilet. These guys are out of control, man. Wow.
You know what? Honestly, if I was a Houston Rockets fan, I'd be salty. I'd be
Right.
extreme, like literally, guys. I'd be gargling salt. That's how salty I would be because just the fact that you came here, gave us all these hopes and dreams. Listen, the reason why Kawhi, when he left, we weren't upset because Kawhi came, got us a ring, whatever, we're good. Bro, at least win a ring before you dip. Like, at least come and
Right.
win a ring for us. Like, you came, took all our money, took all our hopes, took all our dreams, and then you dipped to not any team, to Harden and to Kyrie. Like, that's insane. So, if I'm the fans, good job, guys. Yes, I know it's petty, but guess what? Sometimes you gotta be petty as fans, right? So, I love it.
Well, they're passionate. Hopefully they don't do the same with so Harden. He is a part owner of an MLS team in Houston, the Houston Dynamo. He's actually a partial owner with that. Hopefully they don't take it out of the Dynamo the way they did with his 1-star rating restaurant.
I hope not, man. Please. The fans are brutal, man. They'll say what they want to say, and you know what? Like, again, shout out to fans. You're a fan. You can say and feel what you want, I suppose. But you look at the team. But the team did a lot, right? They surrounded him. He wanted more. They brought in players. They brought in Chris Paul. That didn't work. And so, player after player. So, I get the frustration.
They brought him whatever he wanted, they did. You want John Wall? Okay, we'll bring you John Wall. Actually, but you still want, like, if I was a Houston Rockets fan, I would have joined that one rating as well. You know what I'm saying? Hey, I'm just happy that they didn't get racist like how some Toronto fans did with Siakam. You know what I'm saying? So that would be a problem.
We'll leave that there,
Hello, but at least they kept it like
we're better than that.
Yes,
exactly. So at least they kept it respectable. But hey, it's all love and basketball, right? They say love and basketball. That's what it is.
All right, let's put this episode in the books. That's episode 23.
23. Jumpman. Okay, so so Audley, we'd love to give our guests a chance to give a shout out. So the floor is yours, my dear.
Well, I want to first off shout both of you out. Again, I have a natural affinity to podcasting. I love it. I love it as a platform, as a medium. And I love the fact that you guys are out there. You talk about me for the culture. I mean, that's exactly what you guys are doing week in and week out. You're doing it for the love. I know it's a grind, and you're here doing your thing and providing something of value. And as a point of encouragement, I would say, in the moments when you're tired or you don't feel like doing it or push ahead, man, because I'm telling you, you're making a difference with someone, whether you realize it or not. And then shout out to Jomo behind the scenes, making all things work and, moving the dials. Listen, we all need a good sport director, so I'm going to shout you out, Jomo. Thank you. And again, I just appreciate being here. Shout out to our basketball fans, NBL Canada will be back. Thank you for the support. And then, podcast listeners, by all means, join me. Let's be audacious together.
Awesome. My shout out, Audley, is to you. Thank you for all you're doing, man. I also want to shout out, your podcast. I think for those who are looking for, life inspiration stories that, people have gone through and how to get through things, I think it's a very good example. So guys, please check out his podcast. And my last shout out, of course, is to the wonderful ladies of 2021. We had in the first week of the NFL, 6 female coaches coaching in the wildcard league. We're gonna have a female, a woman referee in the Super Bowl. Like, ladies, I just want to shout y'all out because the women 2021, we are just like killing it. So shout out to all my beautiful ladies out there. Keep killing it in the sports world. We need more of your voices in it. So big up to all the coaches and referees in basketball, football, everywhere. That's my shout out.
Nice. My shout out is to Audley. I mean, it's actually an honor to have a deputy commissioner be on here, giving us his time, giving us, because in the circles I'm in, they really don't know about the league. So I think this is a good opportunity now to get an idea of the league, where you're going, just a little bit behind the league. I also want to shout out the fact I'm actually very impressed. I did not know this about your 2 books. I want to give you an opportunity once again to plug those 2 books. Can I get the name of the book once again, the quote book?
Yeah, so there was I just happened to hear Basketball Talk the way it should be. This was done a few years ago.
Okay.
We actually had Jaleel White, Steve Urkel. He wrote the foreword for us back then.
That's
okay.
And he was a guest on the show, and we were really happy to have him.
Nice.
And then my second book. I'm sure it's on my shelf behind me somewhere. It's called Gifts from Others, and it's just a motivational quote book. And again, there was something that was done in a moment, as again my wanting to share. So thank you for again the opportunity to do that, and maybe I'll start plugging away on my second book, Nelly.
Yeah, listen, that's your homework, Audley. Okay, I'm giving you homework after this podcast, eh? I'm gonna ask you in a month where your first draft is. I'm being serious.
I don't got enough to do, but thank you.
All right, so we're gonna put this episode in the books, episode number 23 with Audley.
Stephenson. Y'all,
That's
please
right.
subscribe, share with a friend to share with a friend.
Check us out at all podcast platforms. We're there for you. We thank you very much for your time to take us in. Once the NBL Canada comes back in play, let's support YouTube. Let's go, if we're not in a city that you can actually watch it, let's go on YouTube, go to the website. Let's support the league and support this Canadian league, because this is year 10, which is a success and a celebration. So that's episode number 23, Good Rookies Podcast, and we out. Peace.
Peace.